If there is real or imagined possibility of discomfort, pain, the brake on motivation slams shut and we start to procrastinate. So we have this incredible system that can give us this motivation, the motive for action to go forward, but we have to temper it with our ability to recognize the trigger and the sensation in our body called a feeling that the non-conscious processing part of the brain that gives us this emotion called fear. All fear is processed at the non-conscious level of your awareness and then gives rise into the frontal lobes of the feeling that your body has. The average person that has not been trained feels fear and puts the brake on and goes and retreats into what they're comfortable doing. The successful person, either they may be genetically wired to understand feeling fear and doing it anyway, and turning their fear into fuel, but that's not the majority of people. That's why 90+% of people fail and stay in that position. But you can take that fuel, that hypersensitive rocket fuel, I call it, and utilize it to actually motivate you faster, further than you ever got before. But it all starts with being self-observing, awareness of when I'm uncomfortable, how do I respond? When I'm doubtful, how do I feel? When I've got negative self-talk going on, what's going on? When I'm procrastinating, what am I fearful of? Most procrastination, by the way, is done because of low self-esteem. If you knew how to get something done, you could do it highly effectively and on time, and you were loving it, you'd freaking do it. But most people procrastinate because they feel doubtful. They don't have all the information. They're procrastinating because they're worried that if they don't do it perfectly, somebody's going to judge them.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, John Assaraf, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, create irresistible offers.
Creating irresistible offers. Creating irresistible offers. What does that mean? Well, it means that your greatest cost of acquiring a new customer is the first sale. And so have you considered that you can afford to create an irresistible offer to get people in to buy your first product or service? Now, whenever we are dealing with creating irresistible offers, let's say you're selling a pen, okay? You're selling a pen, okay? Well, you can sell the pen, let's say for $1, right? But what if you sold the pen, and in addition to the pen, when you buy it right now, you also get 3 videos on how to be a better writer. 3 videos on how to take ideas from your head and craft them in such a way that people will be drawn to what you write. Now, a pen can be sold as a commodity, or you can create an irresistible offer by saying, not only am I going to give you the pen, but here are some added value things that you can use or need, all right, when you buy my pen. Now, why would you do that? Can you imagine why you would do that? Well, the hardest sale is the first one. And here's the thing that I want you to remember. When you trust a brand, and when the brand has a product or a service that meets or exceeds your expectations, do you continue to buy from that brand? If the brand exceeds or meets your expectation, do you buy more from that brand? Chances are you do. So what does that mean? It means that all of the time and energy and money that you spent to acquire that new customer, you don't have to pay for that acquisition cost. So when you acquire a customer and you deliver or over deliver, not only do they keep coming to buy from you, but chances are when they are so happy with what you've done for them, don't you tell your friends or your family? So now we have repeat business and we have referrals, both of which cost almost no more money.
Rule number 3, rewire and refire.
The first 3 that she gives are reason. And so the first of the 6 steps in Rewire Your Brain is reason. And she says, if you don't give your brain a reason why, like why do you want to do this? Why must you do this? It won't actually want to do the work. So if you don't have a reason why, it'll take the path of least resistance and come up with the reasons why you shouldn't faster. So that's number 1. Second E, or second step to refire, is engage. And she says, when you set a goal, she says, engage, immerse yourself in your goal and why you want to achieve that goal, and then get support from a group or a mentor to keep you engaged as you level up your knowledge and your skills and your behaviors. The third of her refire to rewire out of the 6-step process is feel. And she said, get your emotions behind your goal. She says, when you get your emotions behind your goal, by thinking about all the benefit of everything you're going to gain, who you're going to become, who you're going to be able to help, how you're growing, when you get the emotion behind it and you engage and you have your reason why, the emotion is the energy put into motion that is required to get the momentum and keep the momentum going.
Rule number 4, have consistency across your brand.
Consistency across all of your assets. So your business card, your landing pages, your ads, everything that you can do, create that brand awareness and those colors and tie it into your name. Why? Well, there's something about our brain that creates associations. So when you see my face and you see the colors of my books and you see the colors on my wall and you see, our ads or our free content or videos, there's a consistent theme around colors, and our brain makes that connection across all the channels. So when you're building your personal brand, be thoughtful around what does your personal brand stand for. Then what are the colors? There could be sounds. There's a lot of sounds. Companies use sounds, all right, to add to the color scheme, to add to the theme. So when we are creating any type of messaging, we want there to be something that we call banner to buyer consistency. Banner to buyer consistency, which actually is going to be the 4th point. So I'll come back to that in just a moment. So I see all of your colors. When people, our brain takes snapshots, obviously, to create cells of recognition. And when our brain sees consistent colors over and over and over again, it makes the associations, and every single color means something different to somebody else. So I'm always looking for consistency around all of my content. Hey, this is John Assaraf, and do you love good books? I love to read because there's so much wisdom in books. You get to take somebody else's knowledge, skills, research, pay $15, $20, and you learn so much. Now, I'm reading this awesome book called Built to Serve. Find your purpose and become the leader you were born to be. And one of my new friends, really smart guy, really great guy who serves a lot of people, Evan Carmichael, wrote it, and I'm going to read a little bit from chapter number 1. And I love this piece, and maybe it's because I just watched the series on TV on Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, which is really great, by the way, also. But one of the things he says here is everybody has Michael Jordan talent at something. Everybody has a Michael Jordan talent at something. You just haven't found it yet. Or you have and you don't believe in yourself enough to go all in. To go all in, right? And you're a genius. I believe you're a genius. And so does he. You're amazing. You were not meant to live a photocopy of someone else's life. You were not created to wake up and do work that is below your capabilities. You have Michael Jordan level talent at something, and you need to uncover exactly what your purpose is and how you can serve and use the serve. So lots of pearls and gems and motivational pieces. Pick up Built to Serve. Evan Carmichael, Rising Star.
Rule number 5, develop new beliefs.
I know in my particular case, I didn't believe I wasn't smart enough because when I moved at 5 years old from Israel to Montreal, I spoke Hebrew. I didn't read Hebrew or write it, but I spoke it. I was just learning the alphabet. I was put into a classroom with 50 kids, all speaking French, and English was the second language they were all speaking. So I was sat there for 2 years looking at the wall. And not only did I feel stupid, I remember, I'm 55 now, so this is 50 years ago. I remember kids spitting on me in the playground because I couldn't speak English. So I'd get into fights all the time. I'd end up in the principal's office. My parents would be called into school. Your son's not doing well in school. He's having fights with the other kids. And I was frustrated. And the teachers didn't have time to work with me on teaching me a language. God, I didn't know the alphabet. So I was 2 years behind for my entire schooling up until grade 11 when I quit. I said, enough is enough. So I had developed this belief that I wasn't smart enough. Holy shit, where did that come from? Now I know I'm freaking brilliant, and I'm not saying that in an egotistical way, but I study quantum physics, I study neuroscience, I study neuropsychology. I love it, and I can understand it. But the point I want to make is I developed this pattern in my brain that I wasn't good enough just because of my experience as a 5-year-old. And I carried that on for about 15 years until I was 19. And I had a mentor, ask me, why do I think I left school? Why do I think I was getting in trouble? Why was I working for $2.30 an hour when I clearly could speak and talk and communicate? I said, well, they told me I wasn't going to amount to much. They told me if I didn't get a college degree, I wasn't going to be smart enough to get a job at a company, and I wouldn't have any retirement. I wouldn't have any ability to contribute. I couldn't make enough money to take care of myself and my family. So I believed what the people that I'm supposed to believe told me. So I developed this neuron cluster around my own self-belief that I was not smart enough. And as a result of that, I couldn't do well in the real world. So what did I do? From 12 to 17, I lied, stole, cheated, sold drugs, did break-in and entries, did counterfeit money, whatever I could to make money, because everybody told me you couldn't. So I figured out a way I could. And then I met one man, who showed me that I could change my brain. He showed me that I could develop a new cluster of beliefs, that I am good enough, I am worthy enough, I am smart enough, I can achieve what I want to achieve, I can learn, and it's easy for me. I can earn any amount of money I choose. I can learn whatever I need to learn to earn any amount of money I choose. And so I started at 19 doing daily affirmations. I recorded my affirmations. I listened to them for a freaking, 2-3 hours a day in my car as I was driving. I wrote out my goals. I recorded my goals. I was taught how to create a new imprint into my non-conscious brain, which is where your beliefs are anyway. And I started to repattern, rescript, and reshape my belief patterns, my perception of what's possible. And while I was doing that, My mentor says, great, let's upgrade your knowledge and your skills so we raise your level of confidence and certainty. I want you to read this book. I want you to listen to this audio. I want you to do this. I want you to practice 1 hour a day on your skills so you get better. So as I raised my self-confidence and my certainty and my belief in myself, and I developed some good habits, boom, one thing started clicking after another. At 19, I made $31,000. At 20, I made $151,000. At 26, I started building my own company and did $1 billion in sales 4 years later.
Rule number 6, master your mindset.
What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on why you can't? Are you focusing on it's not the right time? Are you focusing on I don't have the time, the money, the energy, the knowledge, the skills? People aren't buying right now. People aren't buying right now. Things are so bad. What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh my God, what if that happens? If you're in a state of fear, then your Einstein brain's turned off and your Frankenstein brain's turned on. And in a state of fear, you deactivate motivation, you deactivate behavior that is required to take action right now. So what you want to do is you have to master your mindset, right? You have to stop buying into the fear mongering on television and radio and so many other places. You have to focus on how you can achieve your financial goals and your business goals because you must and because you will and because you deserve it.
Rule number 7, have a money story.
I want you to just begin writing out a new money story. And I want you to do this. Start off your new money story like this. I'm so grateful and happy for the fact that I am now, and fill in the blanks, feeling, doing, experiencing, having, giving. Just write out a little story of your money story. And then what I want you to do every day, for the next just 7 days, for 5 minutes, I want you to read that new money story, even though it's not real right now. And then I want you just to imagine, what would it be like if this was real right now? What would it be like? And I want you to feel that. Just use that as step 1 and see what happens. What will happen is you're going to do 2 things. Number 1, you're going to get excited, which is great, but you also may hear this little voice that says, that's not true. You're not this. You can't that. And I want you to be aware of it without judging it, blaming it, shaming it, or justifying it. Just be aware of it and go, holy mackerel, listen to that little inner critic that is trying to hold me back.
Rule number 8, acquire knowledge and skills.
Lack of knowledge and skills. So lack of knowledge and skills. So when we don't have, let's say we have a goal, any goal, it doesn't make a difference, whether it's a relationship goal, money, charity, whatever it is, whenever we lack the knowledge or the skills, there's a part of us that has self-doubt. Mm-hmm. Self-doubt is what triggers fear.
Because we're worried we don't know enough.
Right. So if we don't know enough, if we don't have the knowledge or the skill, or we think we have to have this certain knowledge or skill that we don't have, or that, that we think we need, it's going to trigger self-doubt. Self-doubt triggers fear. Fear deactivates motivational centers in the brain and deactivates the thinking part of the brain and our imagination. It's circuits. It's all it is circuits turning on or off.
Yes.
And so in the absence of knowledge and skill of what to do about it, we default to not taking action because we're protecting ourselves.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so all of these little mechanisms, these 4 key ones, cause us to trigger the procrastination circuit in the brain, the do not take action circuit in the brain.
Yes.
Rule number 9, match banner and buyer.
Let's say you have some free stuff here. Let's say, you're talking about, Ginzu knives, but then over here you're trying to sell, siding for a house. There has to be a banner to buyer consistency, around what it is that you are doing and offering. So if you're going to be talking, okay, let's say I'm talking about, personal branding to build an income producing business. If I was to all of a sudden say to you, hey, does anybody want to go to Egypt with me? Okay, to look at the pyramids? You'd be scratching your head going, why was he talking about branding and then asked me to go to Egypt? If I wanted to take you to Egypt, I'd be talking about, the Great Pyramids and the mystical, theme around that, and then maybe say that. So whenever you are building your brand, make sure that you're creating. Banner means any content that you put out, whether it's videos, ads, infographics, or anything else, right? Make sure that there is consistency all the way through to what you might be offering somebody. If you don't, you create brand confusion. Do you know what I'm talking about? So you want to stand for something and you want to create consistency. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have different product lines. So I'll give you an example. I have a winning the game of business program. I also have a winning game of weight loss program. But I wouldn't be talking to business owners about business growth and then say, do you want to look at my winning the game of weight loss program? If I was doing a session on weight loss, or what I prefer to call is weight release, and the science and the evidence of why people lose weight and gain weight, then it would make logical sense to offer a weight loss program. So make sure that you have banner to buyer consistency across every one of your channels. Does that make sense? Don't be doing one thing one day and another thing the other day and another thing the other day and another thing the other day.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is be an adaptionist.
Being an adaptationist. So I want you to be a mental adaptationist. I want you to be an emotional adaptationist. I want you to be a business adaptationist. Because when you become a business adaptationist and a mindset and emotional adaptationist where you adapt and adopt to the circumstances, you control the environment instead of allowing the environment to control you. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest, right? Yes or yes. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest.
Now I've got some special bonus clips that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you just watch a video and you get motivated, the science says you have a 35% chance of actually following through. That's not good enough, Believe Nation. We need to take some action. But when you watch a video, you get motivated and you create a specific plan of action, that number jumps from 35% to 91% chance of you following through. And when you publicly commit to other people, like leaving a comment down in this video, your number jumps to 95% chance of you actually following through on the plan you set for yourself. So I want to know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Leave it down in the comments below so I can celebrate you.
I started to retrain my brain at 19 years old, and it opened up the world of success to me in health, wealth, relationships, career, business, fun, experiences. And then I started to teach it to my employees. Yeah. And, in Remax, back in 1992, I hit a wonderful plateau where I hit, $1.2 billion in sales. And people go, well, that's great. I said, but that wasn't the ceiling for what our possibilities were. And so no matter how much I trained, our real estate agents had 1,500 of them. We grew to 1,500. I may have had maybe 1,200 at the time. But we stopped teaching them how to sell more real estate. And we started working on retraining their brains, retraining their financial set point, retraining their expectancy point, retraining how they thought about prospecting, retraining how they thought about doing the high income and the high impact activities. And over the course of the next 4 years, we increased our sales by $3.3 billion.
You what?
Increased our sales by $3.3 billion to $4.5 billion a year in sales. Why?
God.
Because we reset The agent's expectancy point, the average real estate agent at the time was making about $30,000, $40,000 a year in the industry. Our agent's average was $128,000 per person, average. And I'm going back quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing with bamboo.com. And we grew that from 6 people to 1,500 in 14 months, did 10 million a month in revenue on the 9th month, and did a successful IPO on NASDAQ. It wasn't because we were the smartest kids on the block, but we trained our team to think at a higher level, to be able to overcome the doubts and the fears and the anxieties that hold most people back.
Well, fear is an emotion. Emotions are all triggered at the subconscious level. They release neurochemicals that causes a feeling. We are consciously aware of feelings that are triggered at the subconscious level. The feeling is the end point of the human experience in the physical body. And so when you have something in your brain that a neural network says, well, what if this book comes out and you fail? What if it's not good enough? What is scientifically not correct? What if? My brain's going to process that the same way as your brain and everybody else's brain, because everybody's brain's the same. The mechanism of how the brain works, it's Einstein's brain, Hitler's brain, Genghis Khan's brain, Tom Bilyeu's brain, John Astor's brain, all the same functionality. So if you understand the mechanics of what's supposed to happen, then you say, okay, great, when I feel this, then what am I going to do? So I like to use an analogy of a car. You're driving a car, and you're talking to a friend of yours, and a light pops up on the dash. You don't take a hammer and hit a light. It's a signal. Something's happening in the engine, in the trunk, in the tires. Something's happening. Emotions and feelings aren't positive or negative. They're empowering or disempowering to varying degrees if you don't understand them. So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I do a gratitude exercise where I ask myself, usually in bed, what am I most grateful for today? And usually, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful, for my family. I'm grateful to have experiences. And
Do you do that eyes closed?
Yeah, I do that eyes closed. And while I think about that, I feel it. And so the feeling starts every day with a great feeling. So I start every day with a great feeling.
Do you visualize some things like your children, or do you talk to yourself? How do you do that?
Yeah, I have an internal dialogue. I see images of the things that I'm thinking about, and that just takes me 2 minutes, just 2 minutes when I wake up. And then I go to exercise to take care of my body.
How long?
Usually 1 hour to an hour and 15 minutes every day. And so I do a variety of different things. I hike, I bike, I work on aerobics, I work on strength, I work with weights. I do whatever it is, I just do it to give my body the physical exercise. Then as soon as I finish my exercise in my gym.
1 hour and half.
An hour and 15 minutes at the most.
Okay.
So then in my gym, I have 2 things. I have a vision board, which is my dream board for my
You are known for that.
Yes. So I have my vision board for my physique and my body and my health. But then I also have in my gym something called an achieved board.
Okay,
So
what
after
you
I
achieved?
achieved some of the things that I achieved.
Past and the future.
No, achieved in the past.
Yes, so past, you have the past and the future. Vision board and achieved board.
So I have in my gym, in my home gym, I have like a place where I sit, and before I start my meditation, I look at my vision board from the past.
Okay.
So I get connected to the different things that I've been able to achieve, and I remember every day when I set my mind and my focus to achieving goals, I can achieve all of my goals. Right, but what I also do is I reinforce. Most people focus on what's not working. This isn't going well. This didn't work. I want to remind myself every day of look how many things I was able to accomplish by being clear, by being passionate, by using these rituals. So before I go into my meditation, which is with my eyes closed, I look at my achieved board. I get emotionally associated with it to remind myself that when I set my mind to achieve something, I can do it. And then I look across, because I have a mirror in the gym, and I look across and I say, I love you just the way you are. And I said, I accept you just the way you are, with all of your skills and passion and faults and insecurities and doubts and fears. I accept you just the way you are.
Wow, it's
And I
powerful.
smile, and then I close my eyes, and I do about a 15-minute meditation.
Wow.
And in my meditation, sometimes I have no thoughts, where I'm just one with the universe and everything.
Centered.
Other times, I'll just follow my thoughts and I'll just pay attention, be mindful of where are they going this morning? Where are they going today? So I'll follow my thoughts and I'll just follow them. Other times, I'll follow a thought and say, release that one. And follow another thought and say, release that one. So I'm teaching my brain that I'm in control of my brain. What happened for me personally when I was a teen, between the age of 13 to 17, I got into enormous amount of trouble with the law. I did a lot of unethical things, and I was getting myself into so much trouble. And I had one mentor that my brother introduced me to. His name was Alan Brown. He was a very successful philanthropist, entrepreneur, and he agreed to meet with me for lunch one day. And he asked me, like, why are you doing these things? You seem like a nice young kid. And I said, I don't know. I just want to make some money and I just want to fit in. And he goes, but you seem like you're intelligent. Why don't you just use your brain's natural abilities? I go, well, listen, based on my education and based on what the teachers have told me, I'm not going to do very well in life. And I left high school in grade 11 thinking that I'm not worthy enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. And this one man, in 1 minute, in one meeting, changed my life. Because he asked me, what goals do you have? And I said, what do you mean, what goals do I have? I said, I want to go out this weekend to the bar. I want to have some good food. I want to find a nice young lady to maybe hook up with. And he says, no, but what are your bigger goals? And I didn't have any. So he actually sent me home. And he said, fill out these pieces of paper. And on the piece of paper, it said, like, what age do you want to retire by? Like, I was 19. This was May of 1980. I wasn't even started yet. I said, but just fill out these papers. So I said, I want to retire by the time I'm 45 with $3 million. I want to have a Mercedes. I want to have a house. I want to travel the world. I want to have a great lifestyle. And so I came back on Monday and he looked at it and he asked me one question. And that question transformed my life. And he said, are you interested in achieving these goals? Or are you committed? And I stopped and I looked at him. He was standing up. I was sitting at my desk there at his office. And I asked him, Mr. Brown, I said, what's the difference? And he said, if you're interested, you'll do what's convenient. You'll come up with stories and excuses and reasons why you can't, and you'll use your education as an excuse. You'll use your story as an excuse. You'll use the fact your father was a cab driver and was a gambler and never had any money. You'll use all of that as your reasons why you can't. He says, but if you're committed, you will do whatever it takes. You'll let go of your stories. You'll let go of your excuses. You'll let go of all the reasons you currently have that are formulating your identity of yourself. And you'll learn how to let that go and become who you are destined to become.
So if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, there's a lot of things I want. I want to get out of this relationship, or I want the relationship. I want to have better health. I want to have more money, whatever it may be. And they've been saying that for years. And they feel like they've been consuming all the information they need to have, but they haven't been able to take action. And maybe because their why isn't powerful enough. What would you say should be their first step?
Well, the first step is to take one thing. I'm going to go back to one thing.
Yeah.
And say, great, let me move one thing forward. Why? Because that just changes the trajectory of the same pattern repeating itself. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you interrupt a pattern, and then you repeatedly interrupt the pattern, it's like taking a detour. And as soon as you take a detour one day, you're like, okay, that was okay.
Right.
But your tendency is to want to go back to what's comfortable. But if you take the detour 2 days, 6 days, 7 days, we know from a neuroscience perspective, it takes about 66 days to create a solid enough neural pattern that it'll go from conscious effort and thinking about it to a non-conscious pattern that has the beginnings of automaticity happening without your involvement. You're just doing.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I do, and for myself, is whenever I want to change something, whether it's a habit, whether it's a thought or emotion or a behavior, I say I'm going to work on this for 100 days. Not 30 days, not 21 days, not 66, which is right around there. I say 100 days.
Yeah.
So you take one thing, just one thing that you know may be a little challenging.
100 days.
100 days, just 100 days. So let's say you want to drink more water. 100 days, a glass a day. Conscious effort to one a day. Whatever you did before, you'll still do, but 1 glass a day. So, I started that with my assistant. I said, I want to drink, like 4 of these a day,
Right.
32 ounces, whatever the case is. And so we got a mug and it's on my desk every time I walk in. And then I have some support from her saying, hey, remember to drink your water. So just do it. So the first, 2-3 weeks, I feel like I'm going to drown myself with so much water. But then it's like, okay, now I'm used to it. Now I'm drinking as much water as possible because the habit is there. And one of the rules that I love to follow is the habit is more important than the intensity at first. So don't worry about the intensity.
Right.
Develop the habit. So can you take 1 minute a day to focus on how you will achieve a goal? Just 1 minute a day. Can you take 1 minute a day to focus on your health? Yeah. Can you take 1 day to retrain your brain? Yeah. Can I take 1 day, or 1 action a day?
Right.
And you start off with something, and reduce it down to just a minute or 2 minutes or 1 behavior. If you can get that behavior to be a habit, it's easy to stack.
Right, of course.
It's just like the foundation of a building. Let's say you have a fear of public speaking. Is it really a fear of public speaking that you have? Or is it a fear of getting up on stage and being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged? Let me take you to another type of fear. Being buried alive. Can you imagine for just a moment if there was an earthquake or there was a natural disaster and somehow you were buried alive? Wouldn't that trigger this crazy amount of fear of dying while you were buried alive? Now, why am I taking you there? I'm taking you there because fear is a subconscious trigger whenever we feel threatened. And the threat could be a threat for our very lives. And when that happens, we move into one of 4 modalities. And modality number 1 is we try to fight this feeling. Number 2 is we freeze because we're in such shock. Number 3, we may faint because of the neurochemistry that the fear causes. Or we might run away if we can run away. Now, these neurological reactions are our brain's way of keeping us safe, which is the highest need and desire of the brain, safety above all else. So when we are looking to achieve a goal that we want to achieve, and it doesn't matter if it's, to start a business or grow your business or leave a relationship that you're not happy in or a job that you're miserable in, whenever we think about the actual behavior that is required to achieve that goal, once we get motivated in doing that, that's part 1 of how our brain works. But right after that, our brain has to analyze if there's any real or imagined danger associated with taking that action step. So if you are going to leave a relationship that you're not happy in, your brain is going to activate the memory circuits and discover what's in there that may have caused you pain and suffering in the past. And when that happens, whether it's a relationship you want to leave, a job that you want to leave, a goal you want to achieve, your brain is always analyzing, is there any danger here? And when there is real or imagined danger, the amygdala part of the brain, the emotional response center in the brain, is going to fire off an amazing amount of neurochemicals like cortisol, epinephrine, or norepinephrine. And it's that rush of those neurochemicals that causes this emotion, energy in motion, we label as fear. Now, once you have that rush of neurochemicals in your bloodstream, that actually gives you an enormous amount of energy. But what most people never have learned how to do is how to take that energy and channel it to action versus to fighting it, freezing, or running away. When you recognize a fear, I want you to do this. It's called exercise number 1. It's called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. When fear neurochemicals are released in your brain, you've activated the fear or stress response center in the brain. When you just observe the emotion called fear through being quiet and breathing 6 times in through your nose and out through your mouth like this. You take a deep breath in for 5 seconds. You blow out like you're blowing out through a straw. And if you do this 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, with 6 to 10 breaths, you're going to deactivate the fear response center, and that actually is going to reactivate your thinking center in your brain so that you can move on to exercise number 2. Exercise number 1 is Take 6, Calm the Circuits. Exercise number 2 is called AYA, A-I-A, and that stands for awareness, intention, action. So here's how you do this. After you do the first exercise, then you move to exercise number 2, and then you ask yourself in a calm, relaxed state, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? Am I calm or am I tense? Am I breathing deeply or shallow? Is my heartbeat fast or slow? And in this state of calm awareness, as you deactivate the brain's fear or stress response, you can observe what you are feeling and what you are thinking and what you are doing, and then you can ask yourself the next question, that is the I. What is my intention right now? Is my intention to move forward, or is my intention to stay in this fearful state? And chances are you're going to say, well, I really want to move forward. And then you ask yourself, what is one action step that I can take to move forward towards my goal and dream? So this is how it works. After you do the exercise number 1, to calm the circuits and to deactivate the reactive state that fear causes, and then you move into the second exercise called AYA to move into the responsive state, awareness, intention, action, now puts you in control of being aware of the fear, being aware, of what you've been thinking, and then being at choice of what you want to do. So when you combine these 2 exercises, you are now reconfiguring the neural network in your brain around the goal that you want to achieve, and instead of allowing the real or imagined danger to control you and to stop you dead on your tracks, you take one action step in a calm state, and that rewires your brain so that the same reaction doesn't hold you back anymore, and that you are now able to use fear as your fuel for success. So this is going back sometimes, I think in 1992, we were stuck, but I knew there was more possibility. There was room for growth. And I wanted to figure out if the stuff that I did in the 80s when I was a kid, that broke free, would it work with some of my agents? And so we took 75 agents, randomly, agents said, hey, do you want to get into a 6-month program to retrain your brain, your subconscious brain, around your beliefs about what is possible for you to achieve, around your habits of what you have to do in order to achieve that. And we focused on retraining their subconscious mind. And so for 6 months, they had to go through a process of listening to certain audio tapes, reading certain materials every day, and following the process of training their brain, specifically their subconscious brain, which controls 95 to 98% of all of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors today. And within 6 months, that group increased sales by $100 million. $100 million. And I said, right, this is working. And so we started to teach. Some of what we teach now in NeuroGym, actually now we have the technologies, we have the systems that are far better than what we did back in the 90s. And we went from 1.2 billion to 4.5 billion a year. And it wasn't because we taught them any more skills to be real estate agents. We taught them how to change the way they thought about themselves. We taught them how to change their habits. Wow. Our agents who made $750,000 or more were in front of a client 75% of the time. And when we asked all the agents that weren't in front of more clients, like, why are you doing that? Like, why aren't you in front of people that are going to help you earn more income? Here's something you could do quickly. It's called a reframe. So let's say you're driving in traffic, and let's say somebody cuts you off, and you've been sitting at the same spot for 20 minutes, like I did this morning. And somebody, you're maybe looking down at your cell phone because you have some time because you're parked on the highway, right? And somebody cuts you off. So you could automatically react, go, I can't believe he just did that, and just use all of this energy, the cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline that's flowing through your body and causing stress in your body. Or you can say, well, what if that person just found out their dog died and they're really trying to get home quickly? You go, oh, okay, I guess it's okay if she or he cut in front of me.
Right.
Or they just got a call from their mother fell.
Yeah.
Would you change the way you felt about it? And the answer is, yeah, probably. And the reason, because you changed the frame. So you can learn how to create frames for yourself of how you see the world, how you see failure, how you see effort, how you see your habits, how you create frames in advance that actually serve you through awareness and response versus reactivity. Yeah. And that is what a lot of people who, for example, I'm going to go back to professional athlete. What do you learn how to do? People have to make a decision what they want to trade their life for.
Yes.
Because every day, we're trading our life for the people that we associate with, for the business or job that we have, for what we eat, for the health, for the enjoyment, for the fun, for the experiences. And you have to ask yourself, is my life worth trading for that? If it's not, today is a good day to stop.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
But most people don't think that they're trading their life for something. They think that, oh, there's tomorrow and there's next week. Really? Well, I have, evidence to prove otherwise, that we have no idea, when the last breath will be.
Yeah.
So let's trade our life every day as it's the most important thing in the world. And not from an ego perspective, from a humble, grateful perspective of, wow, I get another day to live and to enjoy.
I can be grateful for that.
Be grateful for that, but then to respect it. See, respecting your life means you're going to trade it for things that you feel are worthy of it. Most people, ask themselves the wrong question. They ask themselves, am I worthy of the goal and the dream that I have? And they should be asking themselves, is that goal, that dream that I have worthy of my life? Change the question. And if you say, yeah, I'll trade my life for that, good, then go and do that.
Talk to me about set points. That was something really interesting in what you talk about around the stories and things that we carry that I found really interesting.
Sure. So Maxwell Maltz wrote a great book many, many years ago, probably in the 70s, called Cybernetics, right? And Maxwell Maltz was a surgeon who performed surgery on people. And what he noticed is even after plastic surgery that he performed on people, some people didn't see any change in their faces. And it was visible to everybody else, but not to them.
Because they had a map of what they thought they looked like?
Yes.
Okay.
So we all have a map of reality. We have a map of what we think we look like. And any deviation on the physical level to that map, to that visual representation we have in our brains that doesn't match the map, your brain deletes or distorts it. So when we were working with real estate or when I work with business owners, in addition to upgrading knowledge and skills, if you think about how, let's say, income, we have set points for how much income we earn. So whether it's 10,000 a year or 20 or 50 or 100 or a million, it doesn't matter. We get this set point and then we behave the way we need to behave and we feel what we need to feel to earn that income. And over a period of time, it becomes part of the brain's default mode network. So we develop set points for everything. And so if the set points in the brain, and there's a psycho-cybernetic mechanism in the brain, a control and response mechanism in the brain, and it's our brain, why not learn how to reset the set point? And so now we're looking at what technologies are available to help reset that, what evidence-based methods are there to set that, or to reset that. And so when we take, let's say, visualization, right? And you start to see yourself, even if the picture is not clear in your mind, of achieving the next level of your success, whether it's releasing weight and keeping it off, getting into a relationship that you love and are happy in, whether it's to make 2 or 3 or 5 times more money and live a certain type of lifestyle that allows you to do the things that freedom with having money allows you to do. If you start in your mind first and you impress that through conscious efforts into the subconscious mind, it then causes thoughts and emotions and behaviors. So I like to work from the outside in and from the inside out. So use both. I want every advantage.
Is your financial governor holding you back from doubling or tripling your income in the next 6 to 12 months? Now, you may be asking, John, what in the world is a financial governor? And I'll explain it this way. Many years ago, when the car companies were building engines that were faster and stronger and more resilient, cars could go 200, 250 miles an hour, some maybe even to 300 miles an hour. But because of laws in Europe and in the United States, these governors were put on the engine so that the car, even though it can go faster and perform even better, it was limited to about 155 miles per hour. So here we are, we have these cars that can go extremely fast, but for obvious reasons, to conserve on gas, to be able to have more safety on the roads, and to keep us generally all driving around the same speed limit, we created these governors to put on engines in order to limit the speed at which the car can go at. Well, what does that have to do with you earning more money, you accumulating more wealth? And the answer is everything. If you understand that you have a conscious brain that wants to set goals, but you have a subconscious mind that is going to limit your thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behaviors to what you are governed by, which is your subconscious mind, then here's one of the things that we have discovered. People who make $30,000 a year or $50,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 a year or $1 million a year or more, their financial governor is set at a totally different setting than somebody who's earning less. So why does this make a difference? Well, it makes a difference because there's a part of your brain that chooses the goal that you want to achieve, and there's another part of your brain that's responsible for everything else, your thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behaviors. And so if you don't have coherence between these two parts of your brain, if you don't know how to remove the governor and reset it, chances are you're going to have goals and dreams, financial ones and even lifestyle ones, that you're not going to achieve, not because you're not capable of doing it, it's just because you are wired, set, conditioned, programmed, whatever you want to call it, to earn the income you're earning right now, and maybe a little bit more each day, each week, each month, versus doubling or tripling or quintupling your income. Now, let me give you a different visual for this that'll hopefully cement what I mean. Let's say you're in a room that has a thermostat in there, and the thermostat is set to a nice and comfortable 70 degrees, and you feel nice at that temperature. What happens if you open up a window, and let's say it's winter, and cold air comes in?
Well, what happens is the mechanism in the thermostat that picks up what the temperature is in the room picks up a deviation that cold air has come in the room. And what does it do? It sends a signal through the electrical system for the heater to go on so that the room gets back to 70 degrees. That's called a cybernetic mechanism, a control and respond mechanism that occurs in machines that we create them in, or in animals like us. So whether it's hot air coming into a room or cold air coming into a room, any deviation from the set program activates the air conditioning or the heat until the program and the room are one and the same. That is a cybernetic mechanism, as I mentioned, and here's what happens in us humans. If you're used to earning 30,000 or 50,000, 75, 100 or 200 or more, or you are used to a certain lifestyle, any deviation up or down from that setting, that comfort zone, that programming kicks in your nervous system so that you either turn up the jets and earn more based on what you're used to, or if you do really well for a week, a month, a quarter, you actually back off and sabotage your success until you meet the setting that you have in your mind. That is how a governor works in a car. That's how a governor works in your brain. So if you want to double or triple your income in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, doesn't it make sense that you should reset your financial governor, the expectation point, the programming, the conditioning? Well, of course it does. What I've seen in my years of training, whether it's salespeople or entrepreneurs or individuals to make more money, is the ones that think that they could do it just by gaining more knowledge miss the point, because there's a part of our brain that gains more knowledge but doesn't change behavior. What you have to do is reprogram your financial set point, your conditioning, the expectation point. And when you do that, and you create this coherence between your goal and your dream and your subconscious programming, that is when your behavior starts to change. That is when fears dissipate. That is when you stop procrastinating. That is when you take inspired action and you don't sabotage the success that you are achieving.
What do you think is holding people back from growing a business, starting and growing a business to a certain level?
Well, initially what holds them back is fear. So fear of failure, fear of success, and then failing, fear of disappointment, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being ashamed, fear of being guilty, fear of losing money, fear of fill in the blank. There's over 50 different types of fear that holds most people back, but they're unaware of it. It's like a silent, hidden enemy that's locked deep in their non-conscious brain. This is the area that I study, and that's my life's work now, is understanding what actually drives the perceptions that people have about themselves and what's possible for them to achieve. And what's the difference between somebody who says, yes, I want it, I believe I can have it, I believe I could do it, but then there's another voice that they listen to more that says, but you're not smart enough, but you're not good enough, but what if you fail, what if you succeed? So there's voices in our head that most people have not learned how to really just pay attention to, because the voices that you hear, the thoughts that you're having, the conscious ones and even the non-conscious ones that percolate up to consciousness, if you pay attention, you can manage where they go, because that's what actually fires the electrical signal and the chemical response that drives behavior. And most people don't understand, it's like a spark plug. The one spark plug, turns the car on and you can push the gas and go. The other spark plug basically turns the car off and your brake is on. Most people don't think of their body, their mind as a system that they actually own. And so we haven't been given the user's manual for that. So fear is one, but then it's all the non-conscious conditioning that prevents people from taking the actions that are needed. Self-talk is so critical. And so I'm consistently paying attention to, how am I speaking to myself? Am I speaking to myself in a kind, motivating, empathetic, compassionate way? Or am I consistently self-deprecating and putting myself down? I used to think a lot, when I was younger, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy. Those thoughts, and lots of fear of being embarrassed, fear of failure, fear of being ashamed. And I still have the thoughts every once in a while, especially when I'm setting new goals. Those come up, holy mackerel, they come up so freaking fast. Are you smart enough to achieve that? Are you good enough to achieve that? Even when I got into really diving deep into the brain science and even my new book, I was petrified to release my book. It took me 2 years to write it, because now I'm entering another whole domain of neuroscience and neuropsychology with world-renowned experts that I've worked with for years. But now here I am putting myself out there with, hey, this is neuroscientifically correct. So I had to make sure that it was. But there was a lot of fear. But I understand what the emotion of fear is. It's a subconscious trigger that causes this feeling that I don't like. And it's a go signal for me, not a stop signal for me. If you have a big enough reason why you want to achieve something, you'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But if your reason isn't big enough, your excuses will be.
So it's a kind of balance.
It's always a balance, yeah. And we're always looking to be in harmony, right? We want harmony, just like an orchestra.
Yes.
And you want harmony between the different areas of your life so that it flows. And sometimes there's areas that are really great, areas that are not, and other times it's a little calmer. And the more you can be in that nice, gentle flow, the more your life works, and I find that the happier people are. In the past, I used to teach and also do visualize my goals. Whether it was my body, health, relationships, money, charity, whatever. I used to visualize the outcome. And some of the latest research now shows, in addition to visualizing the outcome, visualize the obstacles. And in the past, when we talked about this law of attraction, no, don't visualize the obstacles, you attract them to it. No, your brain's way smarter than that. So if you have, whether it's a belief that's in your way, a story that's holding you back, a circumstance, references, something that's holding you back from achieving X. So take a look at whatever it is that you already know is holding you back. I don't believe I'm worthy. I don't believe I'm smart enough. I don't believe I'm good enough. I don't believe I'm skilled enough. I'm too young, too old. I'm too this or too that, or not enough of this, not enough of that. So address that and say, okay, here's an obstacle. I'm going to visualize that obstacle being real, and I'm going to visualize just moving it aside and me moving towards my goal. The very act of acknowledging that releases the neural tension around it. If you do that over and over and over again, what your brain starts to see is, yes, there was a struggle, and so it's worthy of me creating this neural pattern around this new effort. Because most of what we're doing is, we're on autopilot. We're just eking through the day, on autopilot. And so the brain loves anything that makes it curious. The brain likes anything novel. The brain likes a challenge. So earlier you were asking me about, one of the brain training companies other than ours. I said, does it work? I said, yeah, it's a workout for your brain. And if you can strengthen the neural patterns of you seeing yourself with an obstacle and overcoming it, what do you think that does to your self-confidence and certainty?
Builds it up big time.
Builds it up. So if you actually do the work and develop those patterns in your brain, as you're doing the stuff you need to do in the physical world, you just strengthen those neural patterns, and that's what becomes your habits. No matter what has happened to us in the past,
Yes.
whether it's a traumatic event, a failure, somebody who's hurt us, a mistake that we've made, we have to understand that the way that our brain works is it does as much as possible to move away from anything that could potentially hurt us. So the first thing that your brain does is keep you alive.
Yes.
But the second thing that it does is it keeps you away from hurting yourself. Whether it's real or imagined, your brain will move away first. And it'll do protection mechanism first. So if you've had an experience from the past where you've made a mistake or you've disappointed yourself, you've disappointed other people,
Your parents,
your teachers, your brothers, your sisters, your coworkers, your brain is always looking for associations and similarities in what you want to do that might lead to the same disappointment or the same pain that you've had before. And as soon as it senses any type of correlation, it lights up the part of the brain that remembers the past and brings all of your past into the present moment so you feel it, and projects the possible negative consequences into the future. As soon as that happens, your motor cortex shuts off, the part of your brain that takes action, and the motivational centers of your brain. It just shuts off. And what it does, it either fights it freezes so that you are paralyzed, or it makes you run away the other way.
Yeah.
So that's one part of the brain that works. But if you understand that when that happens, you have an emotion, and it might be an emotion of fear of disappointment, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. There's 50 or more fears that we have as human beings that we're always aware of in the environment. And if you realize that those fears are possible, but they're not certain, what we have to teach ourselves is to be aware that those are possible, not certain, but then to flip the switch to the left prefrontal cortex part of the brain, which is really the brain that comes up with solutions. It's the brain that comes up with, directions, instructions, strategies, and tactics on how to make it happen instead of all the things that could go wrong. So we have different parts of the brain that are responsible for different functions. Most people don't know that they can switch from this part of the brain to that part of the brain. They could lower the amygdala, part of the brain that's responsible for fear and the emotional response of fear in the brain that sends, epinephrine or cortisol, neurotransmitters in the brain that we feel in our body. And then we feel these neurotransmitters in our body, then we think about what we're feeling, and then we feel more about what we think about. And if that's what we only focus on, then it keeps perpetuating the exact same cycle. But we have in
That's why
our control.
people are repeating same mechanism.
Right. Yeah, there's a term in the neuroscience field, in the brain research field, called repetition compulsion. So we have a compulsion to repeat things over and over and over again. Whether they're good or bad, it's irrelevant. So we will just keep repeating stuff. Even when we do things that don't give us the result that we want, we become addicted to that result and that emotional state in our brain and in our bodies.
Yeah.
And so if we repeat that over and over and over again, we become addicted to that emotional state, and then we just repeat it because it becomes automatic.
So what does your morning routine look like now?
Oh, great.
What's
So today was a little bit different, except for one thing, because I drove from San Diego to LA to be with you. But I wake up, I pee, I do my meditation, 20 to 30 minutes every morning. I don't care where I am in the world. At
what
least
do you
one a
focus
day.
on during that time?
I do a variety of different meditations. So there's meditations that I can do where I'm just observing my thoughts. Now, a lot of people think, well, I thought you're not supposed to have thoughts when you meditate. Says whom? There's hundreds of different ways to practice awareness. See, meditation is the art of awareness. Awareness internally, awareness externally, but also the various millions of layers that exist in the physical and the non-physical world. So this morning, I did a meditation with some ocean sounds. And so it was about 5 o'clock. I woke up this morning, sat in my little sofa, with my feet propped up, and did a 20-so-minute meditation in the dark with the ocean, just listening to the ocean, just paying attention and going into a trance-like state where after 2 or 3 minutes, I disappeared. Like my body was part of air and space. So today I was using sound to get into that trance-like state. Other days I'll do a mantra, whether it's, a lot of people know transcendental meditation. So it's the Om mantra. So you just take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, it's Om. And the question is, why would you do that? And the answer is, anytime you can give your brain a rhythm, it will entrain to that rhythm. That's one. Anytime you could pay attention to your breath, inhale and exhale, you turn off the parasympathetic nervous system. You turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and relaxation and your calm state of flow, versus your sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response system of adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, etc. So when you get the serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine going, and you're in that state of calmness, you're able to enter deeper levels of consciousness and awareness. So you're able to observe a thought. You're able to hear your heartbeat. You're able to sense different things that are being risen in your body through thoughts that you're having. So you can actually start to see, when I have this thought, here's the sensation in my body. And you start to get so tuned to what's happening, what stimuli is happening within you that's producing these sensations that cause you to either take action or not, retreat or move forward. You can start to get a feel for how the mechanics work. So I'll do that. Sometimes I'll put on some of the Tibetan monks and chant with them. So I use sound, no sound. I use breathing. I use open eye, closed eye, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. So I practice the art of being in control of my breath, not breathing, just being one with the entire universe and feeling this other than normal state of consciousness that we're used to. And it's not sleep, and it's not, conscious awareness. You're in an altered state of awareness, and you can enter deeper and deeper and deeper layers of energy, which everything is made up anyway. Everything's connected. We have this, obviously, our physical body, but the space between you and I right now, there's just vibrating packets of energy, right? And so you're able to access different layers of all of the intelligence and information that already exists in the universe versus the memories that we have in our brains. And that's magical. We developed our company at Praxis, we developed a process called the 5R process. And the first R stands for recognize your thought patterns, recognize your emotions, recognize your behaviors, and ask yourself, are they going to move me towards what I want or away from what I want?
Okay, so you don't try to change anything, just ask yourself.
You recognize, just become more aware. And then instead of reacting to what you don't like, you learn how to respond. That's the second R. So recognize, then respond. Can I change this? Can I change the meaning of this? Can I change the emotion of this? Can I change, anything about this that is destructive? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The third part is to reframe anything that doesn't work for you. So whether it's a person, a situation, a circumstance, how can you reframe it? Look at it from a different point of view so that it doesn't have the same meaning anymore. And one of the things that we know is the meaning that we give anything determines how we feel about it.
Yes.
The meaning we give it, nothing has a meaning independent of our own thoughts and meanings. So can we reframe something, look at it a different way, emotionalize it a different way, so that we can use it as opposed to it using us? The fourth part is when we're feeling a negative or destructive emotion, can we, through breathing exercises, through reframing, release that emotion? Because every emotion is a wave. So there are 6 main emotions that we have. There's sub-emotions as well, but we feel fear, anger, sadness, happiness, disgust, etc. And those cause us to feel a certain way. So is there a way for us to release the unpleasant emotions? There's not good or bad emotions. They're pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah.
And that comes directly from one of my dear friends, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, who's an emotional mastery expert.
Wow.
And so when you think about, is this emotion pleasant? Yes. Okay, good. Let's do more of that. Is this emotion unpleasant? Okay, well, what's causing it? Usually what's causing it is something from my past that is telling me that whatever is happening.
Maybe I can reproduce it.
Well, if it's a unpleasant emotion, usually it's a memory from the past versus reality. And so when you learn that emotions last 90 seconds to a minute and 20 seconds, 2 minutes, and if you just observe it and feel the emotion, it's like a wave. Feel the emotion without getting into the reaction of the emotion. Observe it. Now you're in control of the emotion. Now you're learning to surf the wave instead of being hit by the wave. And then the fifth part is now to retrain your brain. So recognize, respond, reframe, release, and now I want to retrain my brain to have a different thought pattern, a different emotional response, and a different behavior so that I change the pattern in my brain so it doesn't happen again. And if you do that 1 time, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, the same thought or the same emotion or the same circumstance won't have the same power to cause you to freeze or run away or fight. Now we're starting to get in control.
Yeah, it's great.
Of
Great
our
process. I
own,
love it.
of our own brains, our own emotions, and now we can start to use the spiritual side of our being, the higher side of our being, to move towards the greatness that I think is within every human being. Source of shame, when I was 5, I moved from Israel, where I was born, to Montreal, and I had just started kindergarten in Israel, and then I was thrown into a class with 50 kids in Montreal in grade 1. I didn't speak English or French. And so I felt stupid. I felt like I sat there, looking up at the ceilings, bugging the other kids, and was consistently reprimanded, consistently put in the principal's office. And then I was consistently, brought, to my knees with my parents. My father was physically abusive, which, is a challenge in itself, because words weren't a way, that he communicated. Hands and feet were his way of communicating. And so when I did the wrong things, that was the punishment. And so I felt embarrassed that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't going to amount to much. When I was in my 20s, one of the things that Alan put me on a path to was personal development. Read a book a month, go to events, listen to cassette tapes back then of motivational stuff for motivation, for inspiration, for strategies, for tactics of what to do to raise your level of skill and knowledge. So I went to this event and I brought up this challenge that I had with my father. And the instructor said, when are you going to forgive him? I said, never. I'm never going to forgive him. Forgive him. There was so much pain. And the instructor said, well, if you're never going to forgive him, then you're the one taking the poison pill, hoping he's going to die or he's going to be affected.
If you want even more John Assaraf, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
When you put yourself up on the pedestal where you deserve and you pay yourself, you actually build your self-confidence, you build your self-worth, you build your self-esteem,